Let me start with a message that came in my mailbox a few days ago, saying that Christian Wijnants will be sold at Corso Como Dieci in Milan.
Oh yes, yeah, that's true.
For those who don't know Corso Como Dieci, it's like the concept store where you have to be, where you have to go when you're in Milan, but also where you, well, in the best of everything, have your brand.
Yeah, it's true. It's a great honor to work with them. Very first time that I'm distributed there, and I've just been invited 2 weeks ago to go there for the launch of the collection, and I was very happy. It was like, as a child, being in a shop where you once would dream to have your clothes in. So this feeling came back. So it was a very nice feeling, and I'm very happy to work with them. It actually was part of the prize, the Woolmark prize that I won last year, and the winner of the competition would sell the collection to different prestigious stores in the world, like Corso Como.
Yeah. So that's what a prize does to a company or a young designer.
As well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the prize not only gave a lot of visibility, like in the press, in the media, especially the Woolmark was extremely global visibility, because Woolmark is famous all over the world, and they had a lot of campaigns in different cities and different magazines. But another part of the competition, of the prize, was to be directly linked with retailers and to have a direct sales actually coming from the prize. So I worked with Joyce in Hong Kong, Dieci Corso Como in Milan, Harvey Nichols in London, David Jones in Australia, and a few more.
Wow.
Yeah.
How international are you right now? Can you tell?
But since the start of my company, the export has been the biggest part of the of our job, because the very first clients that came to the showroom were Japanese, Americans. Before even we had Belgian clients, it took 2 or 3 years. So I think for many designers in Belgium, the international way is the only way possible.
The only way to go. It's something, Annick, that in your study, in your research, you also came across, that a lot of high-end avant-garde designers from Belgium immediately want to take the international path.
Yes, and that is one of the difficulties. It's very difficult. When we are talking about the fashion industry, we must be aware that there are separate segments. And in Belgium, for example, we have no luxury market. It's one segment. Another one are the high-end designers, independent creative designers, like Christian. And it's very typical for Flanders. Then you have, we call it the middle segment. They are more trend-focused and on the middle class. And then you have the retail. So now we are talking about these high-end designers, and indeed, in the literature, we are calling them the born globals, because they need to be immediately present themselves internationally. Yeah. And so we are not talking about the local market, but they need to be in the big cities, in Paris, in London, in Milan, and that costs also a lot of money, but that's another problem that we will discuss probably. But indeed, that's very typical for these born globals. The other segments, like the middle segment and the retail, they have another strategy. We call it also the Uppsala strategy, because it were 2 authors from Sweden that wrote this article about this strategy. And they are more focused on the local market. And when they are very strong on the local market, then they are looking abroad, and mostly they start with the neighboring countries. And instead of the born globals, they want to be in China, in America, and everywhere in the world from the start, from the beginning. Yeah.
Christian, you graduated in 2000 and then started your company in 2003. Was it immediately clear what you wanted to do then? Because you were, let's say, the Antwerp 6, everybody knows. You're from a few generations after that, if we can say so.
When I graduated in 2000, I didn't really believe I could start my own business right away. So I was more thinking about a career as an assistant or just working in the fashion industry. But then, thanks to a prize that I won the year after, the prize, the Festival de Hier in France.
Another very important prize.
Yeah, it's a good prize because they launch young designers which just are starting or just graduated. And then, thanks to that prize, I got more self-confidence, which I think is an important factor. Also, I got a lot of good reactions on the collection, and already directly retailers who ordered the collection. So actually it came a little bit by accident. It was not something I planned to. So in 2002, 2003 I started really thinking seriously about launching my collection, while 2 years before I wouldn't have even thought about it. So it's something that came especially from that push, from the positive reactions from that prize.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you get the money to start? Because that is something that a lot of people found very normal. You just start a collection, as if it's like that.
Well, it's true that there are different ways of starting. I started very, very slowly and very small, so just having a couple of styles, trying to work directly on commercial pieces, so it means that the pieces that I sold could finance the next collection, and not starting to make a very creative and strong, crazy collection that nobody would buy. So my idea was that the collection would, and the sales of the collection would finance the next one. So from the start, I had a kind of commercial idea of working in fashion, and slowly by slowly, with the benefits of each season, I could increase the size of the collection, increase the structure.
Did you immediately have people around you that helped you with a strategy or with running a business? Because I guess you wanted to be a designer, but did you want to be an entrepreneur?
No, that's true. That's something you don't know and that you don't learn when you're at school. And people forget about that. Is that fashion is not an art. It's a real hard business. And at the end of the day, you have to sell a lot of clothes to be able to survive and to make a new collection. So this side of the business, the management side, the finance side, I learned by just doing it. Of course, now since a few years, we have more help on that side. We work with consultants and different people who help us on that. But in the beginning, it was learning by making mistakes, literally.
Yeah. Like everybody, I guess.
Like everybody, yeah.
Finding partners is not easy. That's also something that is in your study. Was it difficult for you to find the right people? Because if you go international, you need other people.
Yeah, I think that's the most difficult thing. If from the start you find Pierre Berger or somebody like this that helps you and that takes maybe the financial side or the business side, or even like a creative partner, I think things can go much faster. So it really depends of what's happening in your life and the way you make your company. But it can go very slow, but better slowed and steady than rush something into something that can crash down very quickly as well.
What I was just, we were looking at the slides of Pierre, and I was thinking it's so typically Belgian that we don't immediately have a rollout of stores or accessories or 6 collections a year.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not what Belgian designers do. They go very slowly.
Yeah, it's true. I think it's quality above quantity, and is also the idea of having. It's better to have a very strong product, maybe a little bit later in the sales campaign, but at least to have a strong collection ready than to try to make many pre-collections and trying to rush everything. So I think it's maybe, like you say, maybe a characteristic for designers here, but it's I think something that is changing as well.
You think so? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so, because pre-collections and having more collections in a season, I think it's something very important for the future, and I think it is a very good solution to increase your visibility in stores and to increase your sales as well.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that that I came across in the study also is that there's hardly any branding of high-end designers internationally. Can you tell me more about that?
Yes, that's true. Yes, it's But first I want to say that besides this segmentation, and you must be aware in which segment you are working in, we make also a distinction in our study about the life stage of the company. So the strategy for a starter is different from the strategy of someone who has already an established company. And so you could say...
After 10 years, what
yes,
is he?
I think you are quite established. I have to say your reputation is established. You are known, and the awards that you received were very helpful for that. You get media attention, and also for the money you get, I think. And also it has an important symbolic value. But I must confess that I didn't find any business where the gap between reputation and business reality can be so big. Because in Flanders, with these independent designers, they are all, most of them are SMEs. That means that they are small, or some of them are a little bit bigger, but it goes from 3 persons to 10 persons, and that's it. So it remains very tough to survive in this business. But it's true that most of them who are successful, they learn by trial and error, and they have slow strategy. It's an incremental process. And yes, like Dries van Noten, he's there after 30 years now, and also
and
the
there's
Antwerp 6.
There's only one Dries van Noten, of course.
Of course. Yeah. So there are a lot of others, but that's very typical.
Yeah. And for the branding, to get back to my question, hardly any branding.
Yes, but it's not so easy, of course, to do a branding abroad, because it costs a lot of money, these campaigns. So most of the designers are working with the department stores, and they are doing in-store branding or B2B communication. But it's true that only our name of the Antwerp 6 is still a brand, you could say, but the individual branding is still very, very low, yes.
Yeah, yeah. Your branding, that's what you're doing in the showroom and what you're doing in Paris, the show, the fashion show.
Yeah, but it's not only that. I think when you mentioned that Belgians don't do branding, I think they do it in a different way.
Okay.
They don't buy maybe advertisement pages, but they organize fashion shows where they really bring more than just a few models on the catwalk, where they bring really a story, and they bring emotions, and they really try to give that emotion through the show. Also, I think the sales through of many Belgian designers is very high, and that's also very good publicity. It's also something that makes people coming back. So the product itself can be the branding, actually, in a way.
Yeah, it's what we always write, that in Belgium fashion, it's the clothes that sell.
Yes.
It's not everything around it. And what you see is what you get.
Yeah, it's a little bit like, to come back to a totally different example, because I worked for them a few years ago, but that's also a little bit what Zara does. They don't do branding, they don't do advertisement. People know what it is. People go there, they know what the collection is about. They don't need a celebrity in a campaign to go there and to buy it. So on a totally different level, it's maybe also a bit what we're doing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The creative versus the commercial, we already talked about that. You feel good about it now? You know what works?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I said from the start. I don't consider fashion as art. For me, fashion is a business where you use, of course, creativity, and you express yourself, you try new ideas. But it's a business, so you sell pieces of clothing, and by doing that, you have to deal with the commercial aspect. So it's definitely something that you forget when you're studying fashion, when you're a student. Is that
maybe that's the best.
Yeah, it is the best. I think it's good not to think too much about it, and to be really free and be very creative. But the years after the academy are sometimes a little bit hard to finally realize.
That's also when you study. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. we heard also Walter van Berendonk, the director of the school, of the fashion department. And I can understand him, that he say, yes, 4 years in your life you can be in a creative hub, and to be creative is wonderful. But afterwards, they are coming into the real world. It's a little bit the image of Alice in Wonderland that was using by Stephen. And then they are confronted with reality. And most of them are not prepared to it. But I think the climate has changed now, and we see a lot of initiatives. We are also one of them, to help these creative designers, to not, they have to become more entrepreneurial perhaps, but we are there to support, to help them, and to develop their business, because it's a tough world.
Yeah, of course. You decided to stay in Antwerp. You didn't go to London, you didn't go to Paris. Why Antwerp?
Why not?
Okay.
No, I loved it here from the start. Actually, I'm from Brussels. I love to come to Antwerp to study. I directly fell in love with the city because, for many reasons, I like the architecture and on the fashion scene. There's so much going on, and still you don't feel like you are too much in a fashion city. So there are the different other possibilities for culture, etc. No, and I love the idea of being in a city which is creative, but still also you can escape very quickly. You can go to London or Paris in 2 hours, but it's a definitely very inspiring city for me.
It's very typical also for the Antwerp designs that they are home-based here, they are staying here, so it must
of
be
course,
true.
of course, it's a hypothetical question, but would it have been different if you would have lived in London or started your business in Paris?
Probably not, because at the end, the city is not necessarily inspiring my fashion. It's just maybe inspiring my mood. But I could definitely work really well in other cities, and I don't think the fact that I'm living here and working here would affect my work.
Yeah. How important is it still to have that Belgian flag? Because we used to have like this big wave of Belgian fashion, and then there was it seemed to be that there was a little dip in that we weren't the hype anymore. How do you feel about that now?
Well, as a new generation designer, it definitely helped a lot to be saying to the clients, to say to the journalists that I'm from Belgium, because Belgium has a very big. They have been very strong designers coming from there. The Antwerp 6, but even after them, and so it helps. I think definitely it helped a lot for the newer generations, sometimes to convince clients to write an order, or sometimes a bank to give you a loan. So it definitely helped a lot. The pioneers in Belgium really helped a lot for the newer generations.
Yeah, yeah. You're still a very independent designer. This is also very typical of Belgian designers, that they stay independent. Is that something you want to keep? Because maybe LVMH or Kering has called already, and you said no. I don't know.
No, I think as long as the balance is good between creativity and business and who is doing what. But I collaborate a lot with other companies. For example, for freelance jobs, I'm sometimes designing collections for others. And I love to work with other people, and I think it's always very challenging to work with a group. And as a fashion designer alone, you're nothing. You always work with other people, and you have to collaborate, not only on the creative side, but also sometimes on the business side. So I think being independent is a great luxury, of course, but it's not necessarily a must.
Yeah, yeah. Would you do it again?
Yeah, for sure.
That's always good.
Yeah.
You have there was other news, Mr. Sigrand, that came into your capital, as I may say. How will that change your business, you think?
It certainly was very good news for us, and we were especially very happy to meet Mr. Sigrand, because we had a very good contact, and I think that's at the end the most important thing, is that it just works out between two people. If it wouldn't have worked out, we probably wouldn't start the business together. So I'm very happy about that, about the fact that we work with him, but also, of course, that it gives us a little bit of freedom as well to do things that we might not have done before. So we can go a bit further in marketing. We can invest and restructure the brand. So there are a lot of new openings coming thanks to this collaboration.
Yeah, so there's a lot of work now, immediately.
Also. Yeah, definitely.
Isn't it scary to be independent like that, even though you have a backer, even though there's the reputation, if you see the big brands, if you see the way we as a journalist are pushed to talk about the big brands, we will hear more about that this afternoon. It must be scary in a way.
It can be very scary, but it just always depends on your character. I mean, if you work in the post office, it can be very scary too that your boss is angry on you. So it just depends on your character, and I think you have to be in balance and always try to relativize, to try to focus again on the creative side, and then switch off to think more like a businessman. And you have to be able to have that this switching from one position to the other, and not to think too much. I think just
do it.
And, just do it.
Yeah, Annick, can you add something on that? Yeah.
Yes, I think you are coming in a new stage of your life cycle. It will be very important, and it's very good to have an investor, because most of your colleagues, and as you told you yourself too, you start with friends, fools, and family that are giving money to you, and when you find an investor that believes in you, that's very good thing, I think, because that's not easy.
I think a lot of people would dream to be in your position right now.
For sure. No, it is really a dream. I mean, it's a very luxury position. To be able to do what I like, what I was dreaming of, and still to have somebody helping even financially on that. So it's definitely the dream scenario. So that's why I'm very thankful to Mr. Sigran.
Yeah, that I can guess you are. I would like to thank you both for this small talk, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Okay.